Hello and welcome to NewsX. I'm Devika Diwan, and today we are examining a transformative vision which has been captured in the new book, Modi's Mission. This work by our guest, the distinguished lawyer and writer Berjis Desai, argues that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is more than just a leader. He is, in Mr. Desai's words, the instrument of a national awakening. The book moves beyond politics and it chronicles a journey from poverty to power that is rooted in spiritual destiny and dedicated to a mission of reasserting India's civilizational identity and ushering in transparent governance. Mr. Berjis Desai, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Many congratulations on the launch of your book, sir. I, of course, have to begin by asking you, your book calls Prime Minister Narendra Modi's life Modi's Mission. What led you to this title and thought?
I think I'm trying to distinguish that Narendra Modi is not just another politician. If you examine his entire life journey, right from his childhood and his teenage years up to now, the predominant theme has been service. The difference is that a mission relates to a service and a political career relates to power, gaining power, maintaining power, perpetuating power. So to substantiate this, as we know, he was a pracharak of the Sangh for about 14 years and thereafter he was a BJP functionary for 16 years. During those 30 years, he carved out several memorable victories for the BJP in Gujarat and elsewhere and did several organizational assignments with great competence. He never sought elective public office during those 30 years. Suddenly, within a span of 15 days, when the Gujarat government was, the response of the Gujarat government to the Bhuj earthquake appeared to be extremely inadequate, that the leadership of his party requested him in a span of just 14-15 days to take over the chief ministership of Gujarat, and he held elective public office for the first time at the age of 51, though he was in active public service since the age of 20 or 21. So essentially for him, yes, power is important. Power is important only so that the highest level of service can be given. What he has created, the massive welfare state and all the other transformative decisions that he has brought about obviously could not have been attained without holding the highest power. So power is essentially a tool or an adjunct to service, which has been a primary motive. It's not an empty word. For him, it has been a natural, ingrained impulse since teenage.
Okay. Ms. Desai, you've called the book and you've stated that the book is the story of an idea. In a sentence, what really is the central idea that the Prime Minister is implementing in India?
So I think he's a transformative leader, and that is the reason why I have compared him to the Mahatma. That what the Mahatma did in the 20th century, Modi ji has done in the 21st, to the extent that he has uplifted the collective consciousness of Indians. For the first time, Indians have come to believe that things will not meander like before. There is a new India which is awakening, and we are feeling like a nation, not only like a country, but we are feeling like a nation. We do believe, or most of us do believe, that we will be a superpower, we will be a developed country, as according to the Viksit Bharat concept, about 22 years later in 2047. So this whole idea, this belief, self-belief, the idea that we are a nation which transcends mere political lines, that transformative thinking, that uplifting of consciousness, that is a central idea of Narendra Modi.
And at the same time, Mr. Desai, how do you think then Prime Minister Narendra Modi's upbringing and the concept of being rooted in spirituality directly translated into his style of governance?
So as we all know that his conditions during his childhood. He was not starving, but he was barely surviving. He left home permanently at 17. During all those 17 years, even though electricity had come to Vadnagar when he was 13 or 14, his house had no electricity. And 8 of them were sort of huddled together in Vadnagar summers, soaked in perspiration, and the only light was kerosene, flat wick kerosene lamps, whose chimney the Prime Minister remembers cleaning with his brothers, and castor oil diyas. This is just one of the things. At the age of 9, he had developed the sensitivity that if he asks for an extra cup of dal or one more roti, his mother, who ate after everybody had finished the leftovers, would go hungry to bed. So this type of a sensitivity, this service was there. There was in this very poor household, there was a wedding of his young aunt. He refused to go at the age of 12 or 13 because he was serving a sadhu who was ill in a local temple. So this idea of sacrifice, the meaninglessness of normality, became very evident to him very early on. And that shaped his whole idea of service. And that's why when he left at 17, he did those Himalayan sojourns during which it was his journey in spirituality for about 2.5 years, which the book for the first time mentions in some detail. And thereafter, he soon became a pracharak in the Sun. And then 24/7 service started, which has continued for a period of 56 years. 24 years of his elective public office, where he puts in a 16-hour day with hardly 4.5 hours of sleep. All this relentlessly, no holidays, no family, no home, severing all ties. This is like dedicating one's entire lifetime to national service. This is not an empty word. I mean, this is there in front of us for us to see.
Okay, at the same time, Mr. Desai, what is the one chapter of the book that's perhaps closest to your heart, and one chapter that you feel the readers will really connect with?
So I think it would be possibly the first chapter of his first 3 chapters actually, but mainly the first chapter, which is titled No Harrow, No Oxbridge, which talks about his journey, his interaction with the soldiers during those 2 wars at the Mehsana railway junction. He is being very upset with the story of Somnath, which he read in a very famous Gujarati novel written by Kanhaiyalal Munshi called Jai Somnath. His dedication to the Somnath temple, his joining the Sangh at 8 as a Bal Swayamsevak, and then clinically severing all family ties. As a matter of fact, when he became Chief Minister of Gujarat, in the first fortnight, somebody came and said, I happen to be Narendra Bhai's cousin. And Modi ji clearly instructed his secretaries in Gujarati, Modi no koi sago nathi. Modi has no relative. And that philosophy has been consistently followed by him for those 24 years of elective public office. So I think that chapter, and of course the epilogue, which talks about his sacrifice, which compares his various spiritual interactions with some of these spiritual personages who have blessed him, guided him, advised him during his journey. And the whole concept of sacrifice, of comparison between the Mahatma's service and sacrifice and Modi ji's self-sacrifice. Of course, as we know, Gandhiji operated on a spiritual, moral, philosophical plane, whilst Modi ji has operated on a modern, assertive role of national muscular resurgence. But at the same time, I think that these chapters will be very touching to the reader. And of course, the balance sheet of the mission, which very succinctly describes his entire life journey in just 12 pages, and which is all packed with statistics and every word substantiated and verified.
Okay. At the same time, you've raised a very interesting concept of Modi's yardstick. So I want to understand from you, what specific tangible metric defines the Modi's yardstick, which you suggest our future prime ministers will be measured against?
Right. So essentially, of course, personal integrity is, of course, a given. So impeccable personal integrity, never a whisper of a charge of corruption, nepotism, etc. So that high yardstick, which will have to be followed by our future prime ministers, his work ethic, I do not know whether any future prime minister would be able to measure up to his work ethic, however hardworking he is. Because this almost appears to me, it at least appears to transcend the mere rational and human, that a man works for so long and at the end of the day, after appears to be daisy fresh and full of energy. So essentially, his integrity, the work ethic, his total commitment to whatever he's doing, his grasp of issues without any formal education of a technological nature, his ability to grasp technological solutions has amazed bureaucrats, whether it is AI or supercomputing or semiconductors or jet fighter engines, the way he deals with military strategy. Then, of course, his communication with the masses. He's a great orator, but on top of that, he's a great communicator. He almost knows the chord, he touches the chord of the hearts of the people. And of course, this entire feeling of national pride, leading by example, leading this national pride in India. And we have come to begun to believe that we are truly a great nation, not only economically, but spiritually, culturally, in a civilizational sort of way.
Mr. Desai,
So I think
yes.
So all these criteria will be very relevant, and people are going to judge future prime ministers by that yardstick.
All right. At the same time, sir, the book also highlights the Prime Minister's glorious years of Gujarat's development, which you've just shed some light upon as well. But what aspect of that model do you think became a template for the entire nation?
So almost the entire model. He was at the helm of affairs in Gujarat for around 13 years. And during this time, Gujarat, annually the economy of Gujarat grew at a staggering 10% against the average of India of 6.5%. Its national industrial output share of Gujarat was around 17%. By 2006, in about 5 years, 95% of all Gujarat villages had 24-hour electricity. He knew what it was to be living without electricity for 17 years. 99% had Pakka all-weather roads. First solar installation. 14,000 panchayats, village panchayats had broadband connectivity. Today, on a national level, 241,000 village panchayats have the same broadband connectivity. But don't forget, this was in 2006, 7, 8. His online grievance addressal system of the public, which became to be endorsed by the United Nations. Of course, he has built upon this, he has magnified it on a national scale, and the book says as to how the Gujarat was like a laboratory, it was a pilot project, the country was the real thing.
And Ms. Desai, how would you say now, after writing this book, that you distinguish between Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the politician, and PM Narendra Modi, the quote-unquote instrument of a national awakening?
Well, as I've already said, what strikes anybody, even his political detractors, first of all, the book has nothing to do with his politics. There is no mention even of any of his present-day political opponents in the book. They are not even named in the book. So it is all about his service, what transformation he has brought about. And what strikes, as I said, even his detractors, is his sheer genuineness. A politician essentially wants to stick to power as long as he can. Nobody can deny that the primary and sole motivation of Narendra Modi is service to the people. It's like Arjun's Matsyaved, fully focused on the eye of the fish and nothing else. And that is service. And he says that he received this Sevana Sanskar, this culture of service, from his mother, who lived up to about 99 and had a very hard life. He has watched her washing utensils of others with ash which was filled with glass, which made her fingers bleed every day. And with six siblings, all the family together, and that is what explains his obsessive regard for women welfare, for the girl child. This comes from within. I mean, it moves him from within. It cuts across political lines, it cuts across party lines, and that is what has been achieved. And the evidence is there for all to see.
Could you also, sir, then take a moment to shed some light on one thing that you've mentioned in the book as well, which is the Prime Minister's mission to reassert Bharat's civilizational identity?
Yes. So essentially, I think, as I have said in my book, and this is one of the primary motivation of writing this book. One was to evaluate as to how history will look at Narendra Modi 50 years from now and for what reason. And the second was to highlight what I discovered during the research in the book is this consistent allergy of a section of the intellectual elite, whether the Western media, some of our historians, who have consistently spun this palpably false or incorrect narratives around him to undermine his life work. This prejudice arises for anybody who's been instructed in the vernacular, who has not received a classic English education. How can a RSS pracharak from the backwaters of Gujarat become the Prime Minister? Of course, that initial disbelief turned into cynicism and now is turned into frustration. But the point is that anybody who talks about nationalism, anybody who talks about Hindu nationalism, and by this we mean not a theocratic state. Nobody is talking of taking away secularism. India will always remain a secular state. We are talking about a civilizational or a cultural way of life. A nation which acknowledges its heritage is a more authentic and cohesive nation. And this is what Narendra Modi has taught us. And this is in the form of his decision for ending Kashmir's status and abrogating Article 370. In preparing his entire military strategy, as we know that for the entire UPA regime from the last decade, 2004 to 14, there were 25 terrorist attacks outside of Kashmir, northeast and the left-wing extremism affected areas, and there was zero retaliation from India. Whilst as far as Modi ji is concerned, there has been calibrated response to every attack, and now that has been elevated to imposing decisive costs on the enemy, example being, say, for the suspension of the Indus Valley Treaty, and not always being deterred by the fact that the sponsors of such terrorism is actually a rogue nuclear powered state. So, and of course, the construction ending the Ram Janmabhoomi dispute. 134 years of litigation was around this place, starting in 1858, 1859, civil, criminal. All this ended under his watch. And after 400 years, this issue was resolved without violence, without unrest. When the judgment came, he ensured that there was no trace of Hindu triumphalism. He drew a line in the sand that there will be no over celebration. It will be accepted, the judgment will be accepted with grace, and the Lord will return to his birthplace. Of course, the only unfinished item of agenda is the Uniform Civil Code. So essentially, it is this belief that he is a nationalist first and foremost, and genuinely does not believe in this majority-minority thing. The welfare state he has created is religion neutral. As I often say, Salma in Sarhanpur receives exactly the same welfare benefit as Radha, her neighbor, receives. So Hinduism alone, Hinduism as a civilizational, cultural way of life is what can cement our country. And Modi ji has made Indians conscious of their unparalleled cultural heritage.
Okay, Mr. Desai, I have last few questions for you, sir. I want to understand from you, while you were gathering some of the rich anecdotes for this book, what actually surprised you most about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision for India?
Well, as you keep on researching and looking at the various inputs, One is simply stunned by his attention to detail, his ability to flit from subject to subject day in and day out. And uh, essentially, there is no facet of national life which he has not touched. I think he had a certain blueprint in his mind. And he prepares a lot. For example, Article 370, people think that in his second term in office, he came with a large majority and within a span of 2 or 3 days, Parliament abrogated. That's not the truth. The truth is during his first term, for 5 years, he worked alone for reasons of secrecy, along with a core team of secretaries. And he brought in all his experience in Kashmir as a BJP functionary. For 22 years, he had crisscrossed Kashmir and he knew the ground realities. And he used this knowledge. It was an extremely difficult thing. People said it is impossible. The constitutional imbroglio is so unresolvable, but he did it. But it required homework. The amount of homework, the blueprint which he forms in his mind and then implements it, one is simply stunned by it.
And Mr. Desai, before we let you go, sir, after studying the life and mission of Narendra Modi so closely, what do you believe will be the single most enduring legacy of the Prime Minister?
Most importantly, as I said, that most Indians have legitimate, genuine national pride to stand with each other, transcending political lines, not speaking the language of majority, minority. And this is a fact. You see people, irrespective of religion, the people who have today cooking gas, toilets, tap water, electricity, access to hospitals, medicines, direct benefit transfer to the lady's account in the house. So all this, apart from the welfare state and apart from his economic achievements, I think Modi ji has taught us good governance, national self-pride, and lastly, he has made vote bank politics irrelevant. In future, only good governance will win votes. Caste, religion, and all these distinguishing factors, which are still there, of course, gradually they will fall by. If there is no good governance, you will not be in power. And I also believe that not as a theocratic state, but a party which is not a nationalist party, which doesn't believe in Hinduism as a uniting, cementing factor, it will find it very difficult to gain power in the next few decades at the center.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Berjis Desai, thank you so much for joining us on NewsX with that insight and perspective into the launch of your new book, Modi's Mission. And of course, I'm sure all the viewers that are watching will now be grabbing their copies of the book as well. Once again, many congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
With that, we step into a very short break.